Hi everyone, my name is Gustav and this is my wife Karika, and we'd like to share with you our stories of how we met God. A little bit of background: we both grew up in Christian households, but we never really had a relationship with God, and it certainly did deteriorate over the last 10 years or so. It's a story told in two parts, so Karika would start for us.
The story starts in 2016 during my pregnancy with our youngest of three children, when I started bleeding severely. I was lying on bed, crying, waiting for Gustav to get home to take me to the doctor, when a friend spontaneously checked in to see how I was doing. I told her what was happening, and she activated a prayer circle. A pastor at Every Nation, Lizelle, who's now a dear friend of mine, phoned me and she prayed over me and the baby. Her prayer was so commanding and so powerful. I'd never heard praying like that before. I felt my entire body being pressed down into the bed, and when Gustav entered the room, I couldn't speak. I couldn't tell him what was going on. Went to the doctor. The bleeding had ceased completely and immediately during that prayer, and it was explained to us that I had a very serious condition and that on all accounts we should have lost Annie that day. But she was spared and became a messenger of the Lord's grace in certainly my life. One evening I dreamt that I was standing on the clouds with who I now know to be Jesus standing alongside me, and he said to me, "Jump." And I said, "But I will fall." And he said, "Jump." And I said, "I will certainly fall to my death." And Jesus just shrugged with a smile in a sort of a so what gesture, and I jumped. And so began a 2 or 3 year journey learning to get to know the Lord. And there were many encounters and many miracles in that time, all stories for another day. And although I always wanted to be baptized in water, it just never happened for me for various reasons. I imagine my relationship with the Lord to be a room in the house that was only ever available to myself and my children. I never invited Gustav in, and he did not show much interest in entering, and I guess we were just patiently waiting for him to knock. In February this year, the unthinkable happened. Our youngest, Annie, the one that we had previously nearly lost, became completely and suddenly paralyzed within a matter of a day. And I think Gustav should tell part 2 of our story.
So we rushed Annie to hospital, and I remember standing with her limp little body in the children's ward because she was completely paralyzed, and I just remember the look in her eyes as she looked at me, very fearful, not knowing what was going on, as she started to lose control over her body. I also remember distinctly as I was pacing the halls outside the room, and I said out loud that I can't deal with this, I can't deal with this. Like so many times before in my life, I just felt that this was just one too many for me. I can't deal with this. And little did I know that I was actually calling God by doing that. We left Annie that night in the ICU with the worst possible prognosis. The doctor said that she might never recover, and if she does recover, it's going to be a long journey. She's going to have to learn to walk again, going to have to learn to talk again, and quite frankly, they didn't know what was going on with her. They also said that they're going to potentially have to breathe for her to get her through the night. And that's how we left our daughter that night in ICU. A lot of people started praying. A lot of people started praying. From all over the world, people started praying. I got a lot of messages of people praying. And that next morning, I asked a good friend of mine, Rudo, to also pray, knowing that they came through a very miraculous recovery themselves as a family. And I thought that he can bring some of that magic. Rudo showed up at ICU, potentially an hour later, and in the reception of the ICU of the hospital, I went on my knees and I gave my life to God. And it was because Rudo, when he walked into the room, said to me, "I'm not here to help you with Annie. Annie will be fine. I'm here to save you." So I realized that I had to kneel in order to be saved. I had to kneel in order to stand up. And when I stood up, from that moment, I felt that I had the power of God, and I felt that for the first time I could truly lead my family spiritually, something which I have never done before. We walked back into the ICU, and I took back my daughter. Me and Karika prayed over her. We put our hands on her. For the first time, we prayed together as a family in our lives. And an hour later, Annie sat up and started laughing. And everybody was in awe. The doctors had no idea. They still don't know what happened. But I did. And that day, I think God saved 2 people. And me and both Annie.
Together we went through a spiritual foundations course again, spending Sundays with Sergey and a number of other people. And recently found ourselves standing in an icy cold pool on a winter's morning, finally going through a water baptism at Gustav's suggestion, which if you told me this at the beginning of the year, I would have laughed at the absurdity of the idea. But he did, and we did, and I'm so happy that we are on this journey together. And we just want to encourage you to stay faithful, keep your trust in the Lord. Through Him, anything is possible.
There's a particular verse in the Bible that we'd like to leave you with, John 15, verse 7. But if you remain in me, and my words remain in you, you may ask for anything you want, and it will be granted. Amen.